it'll be like a special thing that I do for just me, just to get it off my chest. But as far as our show, it really doesn't fit our wheelhouse because it's not something we can do. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of skeeziness and stuff, and there's a lot of things I would like to talk about, but it's not something that is fit because there's nothing actionable, and it's not something that we can help with. You know what I'm saying? It's just, it makes me disgusted, and you know what, that kind of thing. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Why is our background is weird? Like, it's just a black background. And when I look at the properties for it, it's got the cloudy images. It's there in the software. So I guess there's nothing I can do about it now. We don't want to be farting around with that. We're supposed to be already having a show. Poor Rob got home from his hike and he's having dinner and you want to take a nap. I'm like, I have a show. You forgot. Oh, crap, I've got the wrong, title thing. Yeah. Sorry. I can fix
It's
it
okay.
later.
It's okay.
I can fix it when the video publishes and stuff.
Okay. I already published. Put it on Facebook and Twitter. So our Twitter and both the Facebook page. So
Okay. Let me. I'm gonna edit this.
I'm going to hide the video because
we're episode 65.
5. Yeah.
And what did you title this?
I titled this "Free and Fair Elections, but Not for You."
Channel test
1 2 3 1 2 3
Diamond
test
Club
test.
hopes you have enjoyed this program.
1 2 3 1 2 3
Diamond
test
Club
test.
hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Okay, did you hear the bumper?
I did hear the bumper.
Okay. Notes. Here we go. Excuse me. Oh, I'm tired too. I did not sleep well. I took the dog for a walk though, and I got my car fixed.
Good.
After
I got
2 days, and
I got
a whole pile of calls to AAA.
I got my shot today. I got my first
Yay.
immunization.
Fletcher got his today too.
I am halfway to being immortal,
or at least having better Wi-Fi.
Or at least having better Wi-Fi.
All right. Ready?
I am ready.
Nope. Wrong button.
Devil is amongst us. Stay back, boy. This calls for divine intervention. I kick ass for the Lord.
For in Christ you are all sons of God through faith. For as many of you as were baptized into Christ, you have put on Christ. There is neither Jew nor Greek. There is neither slave nor free. There is no male nor female, for all of you are one in Christ Jesus. If you are Christ's, then you are Abraham's offsprings, heirs according to the promise. Galatians 3:26 through 29.
The right to vote is the crown jewel of American liberties, and we will not see its luster diminished. Ronald Reagan. Let's talk about voting rights.
Welcome to Heresy and Hearsay, a podcast to reclaim faith in the context of political discussion. I'm Reverend Barney, and you can follow me at Seth Roth II And you can follow the show Twitter. Just look for Heresy and Hearsay. Heresy and Hearsay has a Patreon site that you can find. Just look at patreon.com/heresy and hearsay, where you can visit and support us. Just $2 a month goes a long way to help us make this humble show. And with me today, the modern day sufferette, September.
Hi, this is September, or 9 of 12. You can follow me on Twitch and Twitter at 9 of 12. I'm also a co-host on the Geek Grills podcast. Welcome to our new Twitch channel, and you can contribute with bits in Twitch or subscribe for free if you have Amazon Prime. You can follow the show on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and any podcast catcher. Just look for Heresy and Hearsay. So please like, share, follow, subscribe, and give us a review. That really helps other people find us. We also have a website where you can listen to our past shows, as well as find bios about each of us. That's at heresyandhearsay.com.
So, first off, I want to say that before we get into today's show, that I went and got my first Pfizer shot today. So I am halfway to having either better Wi-Fi, as you know, some of the people think, because I'm getting half the chip in today and half the chip in tomorrow in 2 weeks. I'm kidding. It's just a simple vaccine, but I've got half of it done, and I feel fine. Right now, I'm not getting any side effects or anything. I'm a little achy in a couple of my joints, but that could also be because I'm 46 years old. So, it's one or the other. So, but other than that, I feel fine. I'm not running a fever or anything like that. There's no pain on the arm or anything. And, in a couple of weeks, I'll get the other shot, and then I'll be able to go out and do things, or because I don't like to go out and do things normally to begin with anyways. Now I had to come up with other excuses again. So, but I suggest everyone go out and get the vaccine as soon as you can. Come April 19th, every adult in the United States will be eligible for it, as you're able to please vaccine. Timber, you were afraid of getting it because of some immunity problems you have, but you went ahead and got it too, is right?
I did. Well, the first one, yeah. The second one, it'll be in a few more weeks. I got the Moderna, and it's like 4 weeks between the shots.
Okay.
So, but, I'll go ahead and get the second one. I'm likely to have, I don't know. It's really different with everyone. The people that I find that I know that have gotten the most side effects are people that actually had COVID before.
Right.
But with my autoimmune, when my immune system responds, it just attacks other stuff too. So I'm prepared for probably having a flare-up of some kind. But, that's acceptable. That's something that happens to me when I get any virus. And the vaccine that I'm getting doesn't even have the virus in it in any form. It just is teaching my body to react to that protein covering that makes the damn thing so insidious.
Right.
So I'm hoping, I don't know. I hope it's not too bad. It's certainly not going to be as bad as COVID and not as unpredictable. If I were to contract COVID, I feel it could be very dangerous to me. I have had flare-ups involving things like blood clots, and that's a very underrepresented aspect of a lot of COVID patients. But I have doctors, and they know I've got this other stuff going on, and, I would get treated and catch anything, that was basically a side effect, could get under control pretty quick.
Right. And for I had some friends of mine who got it, and they had like flu-like symptoms for a day. They got the Johnson and Johnson one shot, and they had a flu-like symptoms for a day, and after that they were fine and everything. And the thing is with this also, from my understanding, also helps with some of the variants as well. So that's what
they're finding, yeah.
So that's why getting the COVID is not good enough. You need to get this vaccination so that even if you've had COVID, the vaccination will help with the variants, because if you've had COVID, it's not going to protect you against the variants. So
that's
of course,
a really interesting thing about these mRNA developed vaccines, which 2 out of 3 of the ones are. I took my 17-year-old today to get the Pfizer, and that's kind of exciting. It was my husband works for Cardinal Healthcare, and
Hmm.
so we were able to schedule that through him. I was having trouble finding the Pfizer, but Cardinal came to their employees the other day and said, "Okay, who doesn't have a shot yet in your family? We'll get you one." So even the little one's on his way to immunity.
Good, good. So let's talk about voting laws. And basically, what we're going to touch a couple of points on this. I wanted to touch on the fact not only about just how insidious this law is and how it's written, but also how morally, how you can't, as someone of faith or someone who is just a moral person in general, how you could not agree with this kind of law for several reasons. And there's been a lot of people trying to defend this law, saying that, you know, that it doesn't do what it says it does, but it's very clear of what it does. First, and the big thing is that this was pushed because of the big lie that Donald Trump did from basically from election night on, saying that the election was rigged because of all the absentee ballots that came in, you know, or was being counted, because a lot of the states, especially a lot of the red states, like Pennsylvania, said that you could not count the absentee ballots until after the election day. Some states allowed people who got the absentee ballots to go ahead and count the votes for the absentee ballots when they came in. Pardon me. Allergies. It's not COVID, I promise. We live in the South. Let me be clear. We live in North Carolina, and right now, if every car is now green, even if you own black cars, they are currently green. So just, you know, it's allergies, and I apologize for that. But so, but a lot of states like Pennsylvania, like Georgia and stuff, they couldn't count the mail-in ballots until election night and after. So a lot of these, and because a lot of voters who typically vote Democratic would vote via absentee ballot, their votes didn't start getting counted until after the Republican votes, because it is statistically proven that Republicans tend to vote in person and tend to vote on election day. That is just how they vote. That is statistic. Am I correct in this?
Yes. It is
Okay.
also true of, in general, older white voters, because access to, you know, the ballot, they tend to go, they can go all day. They're not working. You know, or if they don't, you know, the long hours, like people in lower classes and with transportation difficulties, vote in lower numbers in general. And that's another reason that, well, early voting is so important, and it's the same tack where they're attacking that as well, because it straight up gives accessibility to people that they don't want voting.
Right, because it shortens the length of time for voting, as far as for the early voting, to where people who would get off work, they wouldn't be able to make it to the early voting in time. And it also shortens the days of early voting as far as on weekends, because that's why it's so and that's one of the things that we both noticed when we were working, when is the big push to get people to work at, we would call it weekends, to get when the weekend voting was in, because that was a majority of people don't work on weekends. That's not everybody. I work on weekends typically, but you know, any, you know, customer service, not everybody is in that same boat, but majority of people don't work on weekends. So that gets them the opportunity to go and work or go and vote. But you know, and that's why Sunday voting is so important, because a lot of people, and that's why a lot of these churches get their people and help them, because they can get buses and get their people out to the polls, because they're all there and they're trying to basically maneuver to where that's not allowed because they would consider that wrong and everything
it's
else.
amazing to me that they're going after absentee voting, right? Because it was expanded because of the pandemic, but it created this accessibility to voting that, I mean, other countries just have a more robust mail-in system, and it's very piecemeal in the United States. But in the past, the Republicans have, I mean, they relied on telephone tree, type. They always had a more robust push to get absentee votes in than the Democrats have. Like, the majority of absentees are usually Republican votes, and that didn't happen. And so now all of a sudden absentee is a really terrible idea, and it's obnoxiously see-through. And the way it disenfranchises, I mean, again, so many people who don't have access for whatever reason to drive to the polls, but disabled folks. That's a tactic that's been used for years in different states. I was state director for the Voter Information Project in North Carolina some years ago. And, we were working against laws where even to get an absentee ballot in North Carolina, they've changed it now, and they changed it a lot of places, and states added in our last election easy ways to get an absentee ballot. Like, you're already registered, so they've already run a security check. They know that's who you are and what your address is. And you can go online and request, and they mail it to you. Or you can print out a form and mail it in, and they mail you your ballot. And it's, very secure through the mail. But for a while here in North Carolina, you had to hand write. Like, there was no form you could even fill out. You had to hand write a request. Mm-hmm. And when this is specifically designed in a lot of ways to help folks with disabilities, that's very, very difficult. And when people are in nursing homes, there's laws against going in and helping these people vote, like only a family member can. So it's an accessibility issue, and now they're trying to take away this access because it didn't serve them. Another really interesting point that a lot of people don't know, people are always yelling voter fraud. There's very, very little instance of voter fraud ever that's been actually tracked down and proven. Like a handful, literally here and there. The most of it that does get found has been absentee ballot fraud. It's been there. We had a Republican activist in Charlotte a couple years ago end up, getting in a whole heap of trouble for this. And that was door to door, taking these forms, helping them through, but then picking up their ballots and filling them out wrong and that kind of thing.
Right.
Witnessing for them, changing their ballots. Like, that's a place where fraud actually happens because, you don't have whatever other witness, and they get tampered with. So
that was what, the 9th district, and they had to do a whole nother election for that one, basically.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And that's what they think, that they scream voter fraud. The Republicans scream voter fraud, and it was the Republicans that were doing the voter fraud. And it's like, project much? I'm like, when you go voter fraud, I just want to go 9th district, North Carolina. That's the only voter fraud, and it was a Republican. Can we not do that ever again? That would be great. You can't claim voter fraud if you're doing it.
Yeah, and it's just so... I mean, there are really easy ways to make this easily accessible, but prevent things like that.
Well, here's the thing. According to everything that I've read, this was the most amount of people that voted in an election, in a presidential election, because as well as the runoff in Georgia, the most people that voted in a runoff in Georgia ever. Okay, so this worked. This is what people wanted, was easier access instead of having to go to some poll station that you may or may not know about, and stand in line. And, I have statistics here and, of, where is it? Where did I put it? Sorry, I walked away from the microphone. Let me get close to the microphone again, Daniel. That's why we do a podcast, so they can hear me. In polling places, where minorities Will you read that paragraph? It's down there. It starts with also who are the ones that are most likely to stand in line waiting. Can you read the quotations for me? Because you know I'm horrible at reading out loud.
Well, I'm looking for it.
Okay, it's one, two, third one. It's where it says the Cato org, under the Cato org hyperlink. It's
You could put your cursor there. That would help.
I don't think I can because so let me do this. I'm trying to. Oh, come on. All right, let's see here. Yeah, see, this is what happens when Daniel's trying to use new technology. Can you see my cursor now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
That's the cursor.
No, I don't.
Right. Start right there.
Okay. In polling places where minorities constituted more than 90% of active registered voters, the average minimum wait time in the evening was 51 minutes. When whites constituted more than 90% of registered voters, the average was around 6 minutes.
That's, so that's part of the problem is that they're not doing free elections, or they're, and we've had this discussion in Ohio already, where as a prime example, where in Ohio, where the minority voters had less voting precincts, and it's everywhere. It is not just in Ohio. I'm just using that because that one just springs to mind. I'm sure North Carolina is a prime example. I know that Philadelphia, prime example. You can go anywhere. And they're like, they just don't have enough polling places because they don't have enough workers. No, you're not opening enough polling places.
Yeah.
You're not allowing enough polling places
and
to be open.
whenever they're cutting funding to polling places or reducing the number of polling places, it's really easy to look at where they're doing it. It's very often in black communities, and they'll say, well, not as many people vote there. Well, because you make it so hard. And they also do this with younger folks. Like here in North Carolina, we saw them. They were closing all the polling places on college campuses. And I mean, these kids are busy. They're working. They're going to school, and they always try to make it more difficult for them to vote. They were taking them out of App State because they had ones right on campus there. They go after voters that they think aren't voting for them, and they pull it off because of how gerrymandered the districts are. But that's a whole nother topic.
Yeah, but that also leads to where we get to this point where it does that kind of thing, where you have these gerrymandered districts to where they're able to pull this kind of stuff off and make it to where you've got a concentration of minority voters in this one district, and then you set up two.
Although, sort of, because the actual precinct divisions and the polling places are set up county by county.
Okay.
So, yes, they could fund counties differently depending who's in the legislature, and they decide how much money that county is going to get for their election services. But these are good reasons that we should have some federal standards again in place, and why it's important to reestablish a lot of the things that were struck down in 2013 from the Voting Rights Act, and everybody needs to talk to their congresspeople and their senators and get the John Lewis Voting Rights Bill passed. Because it basically, states won't be, and counties and such won't be able to just get away with all of this stuff.
Right, because what it does is it basically forces part of the it's two of them. It's both the John Lewis Act and the HR.
Well, HR 4 is the John Lewis Voting Rights Act.
Okay, so it's the same bill. Okay, I don't know why they put it into because
it's been
I guess it's
introduced twice, but yeah.
Okay, so But basically, what it does is it puts funding, mandatory funding as an equal amount, and it also basically sets up. If I'm not mistaken, it also basically sets up to where it would be it would be a nonpartisan board to set up the districts. Is that correct? Am I wrong in how that's set up?
It makes all right. They struck down a section. Section 5 is the one you hear referred to all the time. The original Civil Rights Voting Act from 1965, made it so that eligible districts need to get approval from the federal government to make changes to elections and procedures.
Okay.
So, and Section 4B, which was struck down, defines the eligible districts that had these voting tests in place about, who votes where and this and that. So basically, I mean, you couldn't just let it disallowed the Good Old Boys Network to skew and rig the accessibility. And back in 2013, the Supreme Court said, oh, well, that's not really relevant anymore. This isn't really going on so much, so we don't need that test, and everybody should be able to just control their own elections. We know goddamn well this still exists, these racist tactics and partisan tactics to prevent certain people from voting. And being that we have, the accessibility of poorer folks and people of color, that they are kept in a lower caste in this society, for lack of a better term, for the most part. I mean, the accessibility, yeah. Who's the party that champions accessibility for all people equally? Let's try to keep them from voting. I mean,
right.
Yeah. So basically, the John Lewis Act, the biggest thing is it puts that back in place, like Section 5 and 4B, so that they at least have to follow some, federal guidelines to be able to, they have to have a reason to change things other than, well, we don't think they should have to vote in that neighborhood, which is what's going on now.
Right.
And it's incredibly evidenced. To act like it, I can't believe the Supreme Court decided there was no evidence for that. That's ridiculous. They should have, I mean, because you could just test it with the lines at polling places and the staff per the numbers of people that vote, in that precinct. I mean, the precincts are theoretically divided up so that everybody has the opportunity to show up and vote. But, there's a definite pattern to where these lines happen.
Correct. And I'll be honest, where I go and vote is very white, very suburban, and it's very easy for me to get in. And that's why, we talk about, that's something that we've talked about in the past where, well, why do you vote on election day? It's like, well, because it's, unless it's like the end of the world, it's super easy. I can go in. There's no lines. There never is any lines for me because I can go in. Now, I will be honest with you. North Carolina is talking about passing a similar bill, and just like, and we'll get to something else. But I want to. Okay, so there's my brain's bouncing, and I apologize. Right now, the one thing I do want to hit on, and I know this is kind of like, this is kind of a minor thing, but it's also major in some respects. It's a minor thing because it kind of skews what everything else this bill does. But I think it is indicative of the cruelty of the entire bill, if you know what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. And that's the water situation.
That's outrageous.
It is. So Section A basically states that you cannot go and offer water to anyone. Okay. You're also not allowed to offer money or anything else, of course. But you can't offer water or food to anyone standing in line. Okay. Now, what they will counter with is Section E of the law, saying, well, in the precinct, they will have a they will have access to water in the precinct, that they can get to. Well, that's great once you get inside the building, but if you're standing outside 3 hours away from the actual building, that does you A, no good, and B, it's probably a water fountain at best. That's not the same thing. Okay. And and here's the thing.
And to act as if that influences a vote is incredibly disingenuous.
No, because I'll be honest with you, Coca-Cola, and this is why Coca-Cola has come out against this. Coca-Cola loves to go out and hand out water and say they don't care who you vote for. They really don't. They are an international corporation. They could care less who you vote for. They will go out and they'll hand out water, or whoever, I don't know who their water they make, and Pepsi does the same thing.
I boycott Coke, so I know.
I'm sorry, who are they? I didn't hear.
Dasani.
Okay.
Is one of them. They have a few.
Yeah. Or Pepsi will hand out their form of water, or they'll hand out Gatorade or Powerade or whatever, and they just go by and they hand it out and says, "Thank you for voting." That's all they do. I've seen it done, in other precincts. They just go out. They'll have a little cooler on wheels and "Thank you for voting. Thank you for voting," and they'll just hand them out. They're not trying to solicit votes. They're just thanking people for voting. That's what they do.
And there are already laws in place for a lot of these things.
Right.
Like you can't wear any election swag or partisan swag into the polling place, theoretically, even when you vote. But
right.
I've gone and set up a table, and, people are handing out literature and this and that. And I've gone and given all of those people and anybody who in line who wanted it coffee. But I don't wear election swag because I don't want to be accused of trying to buy votes.
Right. No, I get that. And here's the thing. There's a comedian in Georgia. He's part of the Well-Read. He's one of the rednecks, the liberal rednecks. And he says, "You know what? If this law still stands when election day in 2020 comes around, I'm going to use my white privilege and I'm going to go to these precincts that have these long waiting lines, and I'm going to stand out there and I'm going to hand out water. What are they going to do? Arrest me? Okay, fine."
I got people already talking. We're going to be taking buses down and getting arrested to give out water.
Yeah, I sign me up. I'm like, yeah, what are they going to do? Arrest this white boy? Okay, fine, sure. Okay, I'll post bail, whatever. Like, unless they pass it here in North Carolina, then we can do it here. I'm like, okay, I'll be more than happy. Yeah, I'll post bail. That's fine. It's
why
whatever.
not both? Unless they do away with all the damn early voting.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, that is perfectly fine. Arrest me. Because let the jails be overfull and let me use my white privilege, because that's what it's for at this point. Because that is, and
it's targeted again, because you can look at the data and it's certain precincts that have these lines.
I want to read something from the Bible about this, because, well, that's what I'm here for.
That's what
it's
you
like,
do.
About this fairness is like, and this is from Matthew, this is from Matthew 25, 35 through 46. "For when I was hungry, you gave me food, and when I was thirsty, you gave me drink, and as a stranger, and you welcomed me." That's what Christians are supposed to do. It doesn't matter what your race is, and that's why I read that quote up at the beginning. Well, okay, mangled the quote up at the beginning, but that's why I read that quote up at the beginning. Because as a Christian, it doesn't matter who we are. It doesn't matter what race, what creed, who we are. We are all sons, and I use that quote like man. We're all human beings in the sight of God, and it doesn't matter. And if these people are having to stand in long lines, vote, and to practice their absolute freedom, which the Republican Party talks about their freedom so much. It's every day I hear about their freedoms. You hear about it too. I mean, how many newscasts are on Fox News where the word they're taking away our freedoms do they talk about on a daily basis?
Yeah.
You know, and this is people taking away their freedoms. These people are enacting their freedoms, are willing to stand in line for hours and hours for their freedoms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
And I don't want to hear this like, well, they should be well prepared. Why didn't they bring a snack and some water? That's your privilege talking.
And more importantly, so why can't we offer them water? Why can't a nice neighborly thing be, as a Christian, why can't I go up to somebody? It's like, hey, you look a little thirsty, or are you okay? You're looking a little pale. Can I get you a granola bar? Or, are you okay? Can I get you something? Your blood sugar's looking a little low. You're a little pale. Yeah. Can I not offer that? As a Christian, shouldn't I be looking out for my fellow man? That's what I'm saying. If I'm just, there and I see somebody that looks like they're in need, aren't I supposed to help? Aren't I supposed to offer assistance? And you're telling me it's against the law to do that. How dare you arrest me for doing my Christian duty?
Wouldn't it be amazing though? Like, people can start getting arrested and they can just use Matthew 25 and say that you're actually violating your First Amendment rights by
you're violating my Christian rights. I would use that in the court of law. I would. It's like, you're violating my Christian rights because I was helping my fellow man who was in need because they looked like they were in need. And according to Matthew 25, when I help my fellow man, I'm helping Christ.
And literally cites food and water.
Yeah, and it literally cites food and water. Yeah. And that's what I'm doing. And you're denying my freedom of religion to help my fellow man. And why? Like, I love for Fox News to try to bury that somehow. That would be great. Yeah, but yeah, and I'm not trying to do this as some schadenfreude or trying to use this as some. No, because I truly believe it, and you know me well enough to know that I truly believe that. Yeah. That this is what I believe, that I'm trying to help these people out because they've been standing along, and I know it says 51 minutes here that's an average. So, there's more people staying in line a lot longer. Of course, there's more people staying in the line a lot shorter, but the average is 51 minutes. All right. And we've seen these lines in Florida. How long have they been standing? And in Florida, it's much worse, and they don't even have these laws yet, So, and I don't understand it and I don't get it, especially considering the fact that Major League Baseball said, okay, no, we're not going to deal with that. No, we're walking. And I give it, if this law is not repealed or changed in some way by the end of spring, I expect Marvel to stop filming in Georgia.
That seems likely, yeah.
Because if any state knows, what happened when we passed that bathroom law, how many we had Marvel Studios here. We had so many studios filming in North Carolina that just up and left us and went down to Georgia. Mm-hmm. And they'll be more than happy. And they're, right now they probably are still filming and stuff right now in Georgia. Once they finish filming up whatever they're doing right now in Georgia, if that law hasn't been corrected, and that's what I don't understand about North Carolina wanting to try to pass this. And there's going to be an update from last week as well, but why they're trying to go ahead and pass this, law, they should know better because they've already been down this road and saw how much money they've lost. Now, I understand what like Stacey Abrams and others are saying. Don't leave us, don't do this. But I can also say sometimes it works because that law, though not completely changed, did get changed and did get fixed in some respects. So it does, those economic ramifications does affect a state. We got rid of McCrory, and we got Cooper, and there has been some change to that law. It's not a perfect change. I'll be the first to admit it. I would like it completely off the books completely, and so would you.
Well, instead they're trying to push more of those, but
Yeah, I know. We'll get to that in a minute. We're doing enough,
you're breaking up.
because don't learn their lessons. But those things do work.
Mhm.
It's one of those. I understand both
Boycotts,
sides of
you
the.
know.
I mean, I understand both sides of the equation. I understand people like Stacey Abrams saying, "Don't do this because it hurts us." And it's like, I get that. I do. I really do. And I don't like hurting people who are in the fight. But on the same thing, it does help too. So I don't know. That's one of those 50, catch-22 situations. It helps, but it hurts. And what is your take on things like when Major League Baseball does something like this, or Coca-Cola pulls out of something, or whatever? What is your take on it?
I mean, it's complicated. I hate that, individuals in those, positions and small businesses that benefit from that big influx of money are hurt by events and things being pulled. However, I think I am a strong believer in voting with your dollars, and those businesses and individuals should be banding together to make their wishes known. And I mean, it's easy to say, not so easy to do, to go ahead and take your own business elsewhere. But these are not long-term things. These are some special events. So you should and could plan around it. It's a lot of these things that are being pulled are, it's not like entire Coke isn't going to leave Georgia. That's super unlikely. And what they've been asked to do is, we're going to boycott your products until you speak up, because you have a bunch of lobbying dollars, and try to pressure your representatives to reverse this. And individuals can also be pressing to reverse these measures, and business owners have their own coalitions and their own lobbying opportunities to make their voices louder, to reverse and do what's better for the voting public and for everyone's rights.
No, I agree. It is, but like I said, there's also the fact that Marvel is a little more entrenched in Georgia and is a bit more of an industry, and they do have the, I know, like, they have a film industry in Georgia, and
there's a lot of other places that could use it.
I know, it's true. It's like the
I'm sorry you're going to lose that, but someone else is going to benefit.
Yeah.
It's not like it's just completely out of your control, because ultimately these representatives are supposed to be answering to us, and that's why these things can work.
Yeah, I know, and
it's a greater good thing. I mean, I would hate it if I was, planning on working for tips around the World Series. Good Lord. That's a hit.
Yeah. No, I get that, because I was at I was at a special event down in Georgia, and we tipped very well. We went to WrestleMania down there in Atlanta, and we tipped very well. And it was, but there, it was 100,000 people that were down there, that just appeared out of nowhere one year and was not normally down there, that were international people, from all over the world. And it was hundreds of thousands of dollars, and that just, I mean, millions, hundreds of millions of dollars that just suddenly appeared. That was just the fans, not including the production staff and the people that were performing and everything else. So yeah, it's a lot of money. I get that, I do. But on the same thing,
look at all the basketball money North Carolina lost.
Yeah, I know, but we got it back once we changed the law. We still got the All-Star game again, so it can be changed. change the law and you get it. So let's do this. So there, contact your congressman, contact both your local and your state senator. If there is a law like this coming on your books in your state, you need to be on the phone with them. And here's the thing: be nice to the representative, be nice to the individuals you speak with. If you're on the phone, okay, because they are just staff members and they are just working a job. Some of them are true believers, some of them are just staff members. But whoever, be nice to them. That will get you.
Even if they're not nice to you, but record it if you want.
I would, yeah. If they're not nice to you, hit that record button. That would be very helpful. So that way you can turn that in. But if they're nice to you or whatever, just be nice, be respectful. Treat them with respect. That will get you a better chance of your phone call being heard. Email is always a good way. That way you have a printed thing. I know that for me, I never get a response with one of our senators in North Carolina, but the other senator that just got reelected, he does respond. He never responds the way I want him to, but he does respond. Burr never responds to me. He never answers anything I send.
He responds to me, often with typos, but he responds.
Yeah, but the other senator our other senator whose name I can't remember to save my life now. Oh my gosh, Daniel, you're supposed to be doing political stuff and you can't remember your two senators. This is why you don't run for political office, Daniel. I'm sorry?
Tillis.
Yes, Tillis. Sorry. He does respond every time I send a nice letter. On a nice letterhead, and it's never anything I want. It's not a reply I want, but he does reply. I also have Virginia Fox as my representative, and I'd rather stab myself in the face, but that's another story entirely. But that's my federal. But contact them, let them know you don't want these kind of laws in the books. Contact, or that you want them to support, the law, the John Lewis bill to be passed. Contact your local representatives that you don't want these states to pass these draconian Jim Crow laws that limit voting rights and everything else. That do a call of action and definitely go out and do this kind of stuff. That's important. Now let's do an update. From last week, we talked about the trans rights bills and everything that was going on. First off, a little good news. It's tentative, but it's a little good news. The governor of Arkansas vetoed the health care bill part of the trans rights bill, saying that it was too broad. Basically, he said it was too broad, and that it got in the way of rights between doctors and their patients, and felt that that he would be more than happy to sign something that was a little more narrow, but as far as what it was right now, that it was way too broad. However, he also said that they could override his veto. Yeah. So, but at least he vetoed it. So there's a little good news in that. It's not great news, but I'll take some good news.
Okay.
It's something. Now, North Carolina. Why do you do this to us, North Carolina? Why? We try so hard and we try to say, hey, we're doing better. And then you create this law here that you want to pass that is completely and totally bullshit.
This is abominable. I mean, it's very similar to the laws we were talking about in Arkansas last week with, the denying health care for transgender individuals, but also
It,
Requiring state employees, like teachers and everyone, to report signs of gender nonconformity, that's some twisted Gestapo shit right there.
Let me tell you a story. My senior year of high school, and the seniors in high school, we weren't allowed to wear hats. It was just a thing. But the seniors on one day a year were allowed to wear hats. I decided I was going to be clever and I was going to wear a special hat. My brother had got this for me because he had went down with his junior high school and got me the specific set of mouse ears when he went down to Disney World in Orlando, Florida. And I specifically asked for these kind of they were mini mouse ears, but they were a hat. And what it was basically the top half of Minnie Mouse's head with her mouse nose, eyelashes that had the eye makeup and everything, eyelashes, pink bow, ears. Okay. And it was like a cap on the back. So I could, put it on and put my ponytail through, because even back in high school, I had a ponytail because I was into, that kind of grunge music, and we all had long hair. So that being said, I had wore this hat to Hat Day. I would have had my teachers have to send a letter saying I was nonconformist because I was wearing a Minnie Mouse ears to school. And I am not trans of any kind. I am very cis heterosexual. But because I decided I was going to be different and just wear Minnie Mouse ears one day and just be funny, I was going to have that would happen. And that is some fucking bullshit.
Yeah, and this is also incredibly, it's got all that language in it, like it's, our wonderful, thank you, Hobby Lobby, fuck off. You can't, healthcare providers and licensing boards and everything don't have to do anything against their conscience. So this can limit access to women's health care, as well as any transgender folks, and it would allow for conversion therapy to be perfectly fine. You can create whole licensing boards for it now. It's not banned anymore. So this has got to be stopped. I wrote to everybody on the list I was allowed, like, that was relevant to this today. I wrote to like 8 different reps.
The reason I am talking very quietly is when Daniel gets really angry, he gets quiet. Bill makes me very, very angry. And I'm trying not to throw things and destroy my entire house because I am very angry at this, Bill. This is some very, very angry bullshit. I cannot imagine what it would be like to be a 13-year-old or 14-year-old person who has to go home with this note because they decided, because they're a little different, that their teacher wrote them a letter because whatever hair went up that teacher's butt one day said that they were a nonconformist, and maybe their parents are a little, I don't know, weirded out about that. Can you imagine no, that is fucked up book. Oh my God.
Yeah, the abuse that can result from this sort of thing is, I know a transgender person who was like beat with a hose in the basement by their parent over gender nonconformity, and this would require state employees, including educators, to report nonconformity. And no. No.
I know. I know. I thought I sent this to you earlier in the week.
I got beat up for bad grades once. And I wasn't even failing. The teacher literally didn't like me or something. I don't even know. Like, called and told my mom I was failing. And I wasn't. But I got beat pretty good before I was able to prove that.
I'm just this
This is dangerous. This is incredibly dangerous for our LGBT community.
it is. It is very, very dangerous for our community. And as an ally, I want to say that I will do everything in my power to make sure this bill does not pass. And if it does pass, I will make sure anyone who voted for this bill does not get reelected. I will do everything in my legal power. Understand legal. I'm not by
Not
I want to.
communicating threats.
Yeah, we're not doing
Hashtag not communicating threats.
yeah. Let's be clear on that. Any legal means to remove them from office, get them voted out or recalled or whatever the case may be, because this is past draconian. This is abusive. This is horrific. There are words I want to use, but these words have been so overused that they have no meaning right now. But this would basically cause so much pain and so much harm to so many people, so many children and young adults and teenagers. What kind of hateful individual could even write a bill like this? I can't think of the kind of harm this could do to someone. If even just one person thinks this is a good bill, I would like to have a long discussion with you. A literal discussion, not my quote unquote discussions, about how this could hurt someone. Just one person.
Okay, so the sponsors are Senators Heiss, Daniel, and Sanderson. So those are the three primary sponsors. You want to know who wrote this shit? Those are the three primary sponsors. So get them. Although I expect it's Alec.
Of course, Alec.
I
don't know.
They probably took this. It's so similar to the other bills we're seeing. It undoubtedly came from a think tank.
Probably, but this one is even farther right than the one from because of that last little add-on. Yeah, that reporting thing, that last little add-on, that one just vaults it well past disgusting. To
like see something, say something is supposed to be anti-terrorism, not fucking discriminatory. That's
yeah. That becomes like the Spanish Inquisition, kind of thing. That becomes,
talk about witch hunts, like legalizing them. Sure.
Yeah, it's disgusting. At that point, it basically becomes, we're looking for people that, we're looking for, little boys who like to wear dresses and little girls who like to jump out of trees. That's basically what it boils down to. We're looking for tomboys and sissy girls and sissy boys. I'm using those quotes, in quotes, because that's the terminology they're probably thinking. But that's what they're looking for. They're trying to put people back into boxes, so they'll have the pink aisle and the toy aisle and the blue aisle for the toy aisle.
And this just can't pass. If this passes, it's going to be incredibly difficult to undo. They actually specifically put sections in it providing so that if any part of the act or application became invalid, like if the Supreme Court took a certain section of it and said you can't, it doesn't render any of the rest of it invalid. So it would have to be bit by bit torn down. And, laws shouldn't be enacted this way.
No. Well, here's the thing. I am more than confident that do they have a supermajority in Raleigh right now? We'll have to check on that.
No.
Okay, so I am more than confident that Cooper is going to veto this one.
Yeah.
But so we may also want to contact Cooper and be like, hey, we want to put this on your radar and say this does not even need. If it cannot get to your desk, that'd be great. But if it gets to your desk, make sure you don't even consider it.
Yes.
Yeah, just have a big. If you have the big, ridiculous, comical veto thing that you know that in cartoons, bring that bad boy out. Like, because then set it on fire. It's after you veto it, because this is But anyway, so all right, we've talked about that one because that one I think both of us were disgusted by, and we really needed to get that one on off our chest. So let's cleanse our palate, and let's do this. Before we get to our carrot and stick, Brother Bowie, will you lead us in a word of prayer?
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us of trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Oh, I feel better just hearing his voice. So, first off, let me do this. We're going to do our carrot right here, and this is Hollywood legend Dick Van Dyke goes out. I'm sorry, let me get closer to the mic again. Hollywood legend Dick Van Dyke gives money to job seekers in Malibu, basically while they were standing in line. 95-year-old, who he looks really good, Dick Van Dyke, best known for his role and his very bad English accent in Mary Poppins, as well as the Dick Van Dyke Show, and what was it, a Murder MD or something like that. But he was out there, and he was just handing out money, giving money to people who needed it while they were trying to get jobs and stuff like that. Enough to pay off rent and stuff like that to help them out at that time. And because he had it, and why not? Why not help some people out that needed it? So good on him. 95 years old. Going out there and just helping some people out that needed it. He doesn't need the money, so why not help some other people? So good on him.
Yay.
I'm glad to see that, and especially someone who is as deserving as that. And I want to throw out something else. He also on Twitter said that because LeVar Burton is up for possibly being the new Jeopardy host, and Dick Van Dyke on Twitter said that he should definitely be the host of Dick Van Dyke, and LeVar Burton was like, whoa, that was a new one. So it's like Dick Van Dyke's been in the news a lot lately, so I was just like, why not we talk about Dick Van Dyke for a little bit? So it's like, so to Dick Van Dyke for just being an incredible legend who is still around at 95. Let's just all be happy about that, and that there's some good people still out there, that brought us joy as children and everything else, and still doing good work even today. Just wanted to give you a good
I
carrot.
have a huge soft spot for him. He looks like my dad to me.
Okay.
And my dad actually used to be a chimney sweep.
So did my dad. My dad used to be a chimney sweep, and I never saw him dance like that. So I'm like, Dad, you're a chimney sweep. Why aren't you dancing? And it's like, son, I'm going to go take a shower now. You can go watch Mary Poppins again. I was like, yes, Dad.
So this week's stick, we're going to caveat this stick and give half a stick to whoever the teacher is that made this ridiculous assignment, and half the stick after reading the article to Newsweek for not being incredibly thorough. This is kind of clickbaity, even though it's Newsweek, in my opinion, because it doesn't fully explore, although this, yes, at first glance, it seems incredibly problematic that a school's chivalry assignment told girls to dress to please boys and not to whine. And there's a whole checklist of they were supposed to take them root beer in class and curtsy and lower their heads and kind of a list of things that was supposed to continue at home. Never criticize the men. They must cook something for the gentlemen in their class. What else is on here? They must not initiate conversations with males, with the exception of male teachers. So, according to the assignment, they would get all ladies deemed worthy of the honor by the gentleman will receive 10 points for every signature at the end of the day. It had like spaces for the signature next to the thing you did. And that was another thing, like parents had to say, oh yeah, they did this at home. So, then they got busted. And the parents had to sign off. Now, the stated purpose of now here's where it gets shady. Because that's awful. I mean, Barney was hot. He was really angry that the idea of chivalry and women being treated that way, because obviously today we talk about chivalry in a different manner. The term has evolved, but we don't know what class this was. We don't know what they were reading, what the context was. The stated purpose of the assignment was to demonstrate to the school how the code of chivalry and standards set in the medieval concept of courtly love carries over into the modern day. So, I mean, they could have been doing all these tasks and then maybe we don't know. And it specifically says in here that it's not clear whether or not they were going to have boys do something. So that could have been in the lesson plan, and we don't even know, because this is a half-assed clickbait article where maybe the men were going to have to do shit like learn to play chess, because that was another medieval knightly virtue that they had to entertain the ladies of the court in the winter when they couldn't go anywhere. Maybe they were going to do that. We'll never know. But they were going to be discussing, maybe how the quote is, how courtly love concept, carries over into the modern day. So I'm pretty optimistic about this sort of thing, and I can see where maybe they thought this was a good idea. They could do, one set, and they could do another set, and then they could have an actual discussion about gender roles and how they have changed as women began working, and how the idea of chivalry has changed, and what things have carried over, maybe unnecessarily, maybe not. This could have been a good discussion, but I don't know if the assignment was half-assed and awful, or if the article is just half-assed and awful and not clarifying anything, because people just, got mad and freaked out, and then the school called the whole thing off. But there's not any detail about where that was going or why they thought it was a good idea to begin with. And that discussion is how you keep awful assignments from happening again. I didn't freak out and scream and yell and write to the newspaper when they were teaching my son that gerrymandering was just the word for how districts are proportioned. I had a discussion with the teacher about that's not an accurate term, and gerrymandering should be taught as this is what the hell is going on, and we clarified it, and they changed the way they teach it.
Right. And when I had the discussion with September about this, she corrected me, and so I was like, okay, all right, right. So I agree. If the article was very clickbaity and it was very not done well, because if there was another side to this where it was going to show what the gentlemen were supposed to do on their side of the equation as well, and then have that discussion, I think that would have been you were correct. It would have been a very good.
Instead, they just jumped on it and they published it because people would want to read about it, and it wasn't clear whether the male students were going to have to do this. And that Newsweek said, we contacted people. And then they just listed all the schools that this organization operates. So, and how the school was rated by the Texas Education Agency.
Right. So, right. Instead of getting this is how it was going to be done, is we were going to do this today or this day. And then the following day, the men were going to have to do this. This is what the men's sheet would look like. This is what the men would have had to have done. And then on the third day would have been the discussion of how it has changed from the days of these two things. And then been like, oh, okay, well, that makes a lot more sense. And why, and that should have been something. And but on the same thing, I think that the assignment could have been a bit more explained as well. I think that they should have sent those out all at one time. You know what I'm saying? I don't think it was.
We have
I
no
think it was-
idea, though.
yeah,
They might have. This article is unfortunately vague. And it might just be this bad. It might be as bad as it looks, but there's not enough information here.
correct. So that's why we're only giving half and half. We're
I
giving
mean,
half.
if this were just the assignment, the teacher should be fired.
yeah, because that's a scummy. Yeah,
But I'm not willing to
the-
go there.
But if this is, if this is just half or a third of the assignment and everything else, then Newsweek gets all of the blame. But if this is where that's giving in a caveat is like, hey, we want to, when we had this discussion, because I was like, September, this may be in your wheelhouse. Otherwise, I will probably not do it justice. And she read over it and we had this discussion. So we decided to use this more as a learning tool for us as well, or me, that we need to be more, especially me, that we need to be more careful about what we read and make sure that, especially with the sticks and everything else.
Yeah.
Because
and I'm sorry, folks. If I get a chance and I find a better source, I will put it in our show notes.
Yeah.
Because I did Google and I see MSN, CBS, Yahoo News, NBC, Fox, Today, Daily Mail, New York Times. Like, everyone has covered this. Hopefully someone covered it a little better. Probably not.
So,
But
but
that's
here's-
the problem with our media, folks. It's not some kind of huge conspiracy. They're telling one side of stuff all the time, but sometimes they're not. And I like to look for sources. Like, I don't see any articles from NPR, and I don't see any from BBC, but I do see Daily Mail. I do see Fox News. So to me, we might see articles from those sources on this when both sides are available. So
Right.
There's your tip for the day on how to source news.
And my thing is, I thought Newsweek would have been fairly down the middle. So
Oh no, it's big corp, like
yeah, so
clickbaiting.
Yeah.
Especially online.
So that was my fault. But again, so this was a learning. So we decided to turn this for a learning lesson, not just for me in general. So so that's why we kind of did this.
It's okay to be
this way.
mad. You might be totally right.
Yeah, no, I get that. And also, I really wanted to use the quote, one of my favorite quotes from one of my favorite movies, which was from Clue, but I didn't get to use it because it calmed me down. So I'll save that quote for later. But I do love that. By the way, if you've never seen the movie Clue, you should go and watch it. And yes, I know it's an old movie for you youngsters, but it's still a good movie. All right. So I want to thank you for joining us at Heresy and Hearsay. I'm Reverend Barney, and you can follow me on Twitter at SethRothII. You can find the show on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and podcast, as well as our website. Just Google us. Don't forget, we have a Patreon where $2 a month can keep this show going.
And I'm September. You can follow me on Twitch and Twitter at 9of12. That's NINEOF12. And you can also hear me on the Geek Grills podcast. Thanks for listening today, and bless your hearts.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Okay. You know what? I have never seen Clue, even though it has Tim Curry in it. Can you believe that?
Even though you've never seen Clue, and though Tim
Nope.
Carrey is amazing in that.
I have
Tim
not.
Curry-
I know. I have not.
For shame.
I know, it's nuts. I gotta
It
figure
is a
out why I
great
never-
movie. It is amazing. It is hilarious. It has Madeline Kahn in it.
Yeah, I know.
It is
It's gotta get
absolutely
cast. Still haven't seen it.
hilarious.
I'm gonna have to delete this image and take it. I don't know. I'll figure this out another time. I'm gonna end the stream.